Welcome to our Salute to Veterans 2. It has art from our local veteran artists as well as some national displays as well as our Quilts of Valor. We would like everyone to know that our Hometown Hero banners are going to be going up at the beginning of November. I hope you enjoy our presentation following this of explaining all of our different pieces of exhibit. I hope you also stop by and see the exhibit for yourself. It'll be open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4.
I'm Jason Parsons, and I'm the founder and managing director of the Graffiti of War project. Go ahead.
How did Graffiti of War get started?
So it's really started back in 2006 when I was in Ramadi. I was a combat medic out there, and with my platoon, we would come back from various different bases that we would do convoy logistical patrols or route clearance. And some of these bases, they had this artwork either on T-walls or they were in the porta potties. And so all of us were sitting in the back of our hooch, everybody in my platoon, and we were talking about this artwork. And they're like, Doc, you should like totally capture all this artwork and like put it into a book. And so that kind of started everything. And then once I left Iraq and I got home after I got medically discharged, I was struggling real bad with PTSD. It was hard leaving the support system of the military. I was drinking, I was using drugs, I wasn't sleeping. And so I was going back and forth to the VA a lot, but unfortunately they didn't have the healthcare providers, the staffing that they needed. So one of the psychologists that I went to said that, Doc, you should get a hobby or something to keep your mind busy. Because although we would like to see you twice a week, we don't have the healthcare professionals to be able to do that. And so at the time, my wife was like, why don't you do that book that you were talking about downrange? And so it was April of 2010, and I actually went to go visit a friend of mine, George Peterson, and he was out at Fort Stewart. And I had some time while he was training, and I just wrote this kind of manifesto about how this art, like PTSD, and how we needed to raise awareness for it, and then how artwork and art in general is so critical down there, and that if they're doing it organically in combat zones, then they should be able to do it back here. And so, a lot of things. The problem is the VA can't get guys to say go to group therapy, or they can't get guys to take their pills, but guys play music just to deal with the stress. Guys write or they draw just to deal with the stress. So it's not, this is such a perfect turnkey solution because they're already doing it. So it's not like you have to force them to do this. They're doing it already in combat zones, to deal with the stress. So let's just give them the opportunity to do it here. So that's kind of how it started.
So how did you collect all the different pieces that Graffiti of War has now?
So we thought, well, why don't we start a website? And a friend of mine that I was deployed with, his name was Sergeant Deckman. He actually started our website, thegraffitiofwar.com. And so we started, trying to get people on Facebook to submit images through our website. And so we thought, well, if we can get in Maxim, we can get these guys that are deployed right now to start sending us photos. So they did a huge story on us, and they did it on their website. But still, we didn't get what I wanted. Thousands of images. I wanted as many as we can get our hands on. But I think at that point, after Maxim did the story, I think maybe we had like 400, 500 images. That's when we decided that let's raise some money and send me back to Kuwait and Iraq. And so I think we got about 14 grand through Kickstarter. A bunch of people submitted, donations to us. And then we did a Facebook challenge to choose somebody to go with me because I didn't have a camera. And we went downrange for about almost 4 weeks, and we took about 5,000 photos. And that makes up about the bulk of our collection. And then we had a couple people that we connected with that were contractors down there. Luis Gerardo, one of them, he sent us hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images. So that's kind of how we got all of the collection. So we have all of these photos. And when we got back from Iraq, we had art galleries contacting us saying, hey, we want to showcase your art. And I'm like, okay, well, they're photos. So what am I going to do with these photos? So originally we thought canvas was going to be the perfect scenario for us, but it was way too expensive. Like the pieces that we wanted, which were like 10 foot long or 8 feet long, too expensive. They wanted like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for a canvas piece that big. We couldn't afford it. So we were doing a show in Pottsville, our very first show. And we were, I think, a month out from doing this huge, like 6-venue show over a period of a month. And we had no artwork to showcase yet. So we connected with this printer, and the printer actually showed us how they print on rigid insulation. And it was perfect because, for one, it's very cheap. And for two, it looks just like concrete. And all of this stuff is on concrete. So when we did the very first show, and even subsequent shows after that, people have come up to me and said, how did you get permission from the Department of Defense to cut these pieces of concrete out? Or how did you afford to ship these pieces of concrete out? Which of course it isn't concrete, but that's how perfect this material is. So a lot of the material that you are showcasing is on what we call graffiti canvas. And it's basically just rigid insulation that we get a printer on a flatbed printer, and they just print it all out. Okay, over the last, I'd say 15 years, people have been really, up in arms about the veteran suicide, veteran homelessness, veteran joblessness, veteran alcoholism, veteran drug abuse. And there's all these different programs out there that are specifically tailored to combat these veteran issues that we're running into. The true issue though, is PTSD, right? So imagine if we didn't know what cancer was and you went to your doctor and your doctor said, well, I tell you what, we're going to treat your symptoms because your symptoms of, you're in pain all the time. So we're going to give you drugs for that. You can't sleep. We're going to give you drugs for that. But they're not treating the cancer. So that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're talking about how bad veteran suicide is. We're talking about how bad veteran homelessness is. And we have these programs specifically for those. But what we really need to be doing is focusing on PTSD. If you focus on PTSD, that's like focusing on the cancer. And then you're all the other issues that are symptoms of the real problem, which is PTSD, are going to start becoming less of an issue. So why raising awareness for PTSD is so important and why arts therapy is so critical is, I'm not saying that arts therapy should be replacing traditional pharmacology or replacing traditional group therapy, but it should be used in conjunction with those. But with arts therapy, they can tailor the art that they choose to deal with their issues. And it starts to connect the civilian side with them, right? So now they have artwork and they can speak through their artwork, maybe something that they couldn't have talked about with their wife or their son or their daughters. Now they can talk about that. So PTSD is important because it's the center of why we have all of these veteran problems. And art therapy is important because it really does work.
Here's the local artist portion of our Salute to Veterans exhibit. And I'm going to begin with Jack Minetta. And Jack is one of our gift shop artists as well. And he served with the 2nd Armored Cavalry in Germany. And he now spends most of his time woodworking, and just beautiful pieces that you can see here. His woodworking hobby includes flat work, intarsia, wood turning, and segmented wood turning. And he likes to try many different things with his wood, and these are just gorgeous pieces. Even when you can take the top out of this, and it's even done on the inside. So he is a master craftsman, and you really want to come see his things, and how nice that you can also purchase his work in the gift shop. Our next local veteran artist is rusneymar, and he works in a variety of medium, and you can see his work here, his acrylics, and he even has some ceramic death mask that he created. And one of the things that is interesting as far as Russ's background is that he really got involved in the arts while he was injured in Afghanistan. Both the hospital and the Wounded Warrior Project did different art projects with him until he responded to certain ones. And so he's now moved back to Reed City. He says he wants to go back to Reed City because he has such fond memories of his boyhood here. And we're certainly glad to have him back in the area.
Hello, I'm Donald Stephen. This was my creation, and I did this in about 1978, I think.
And why did you think it was important to put together this rug?
Well, this was the time when Reagan was talking about sending the bombers over to Russia and over to the USSR. And I had been in Air Defense Command. My job had been to shoot down Russian bombers if they were coming in, control the fighter aircraft. Anyway, we went to Germany, and as part of the peace mission, we had folded 10,000 cranes here in Big Rapids, and they were mailed to Moscow, peace cranes. That's where my daughter Linda learned about origami when she was a young kid, and she went along on that trip. Anyway, I taught at Ferris, and I had all these different students and different cultures and languages, so I said, tell me the word for peace. And this was just about the time when the Earth rise over the moon. And so I thought, oh, that'd be a good thing, have that, where people can see the word for peace. That's what we're after on this little tiny spaceship Earth.
So how did you put the rug itself together? What technique did you use?
This is latch hook, okay, and a number of years ago, there had been a store downtown here that went out of business, and I bought all their round things of yarn. I still probably have 4 boxes about this size, okay, in my basement that I haven't used.
And you designed it and
Yeah.
then also hooked it to put it together?
Yeah.
And does it hang in your house typically?
It does, yes.
So we're borrowing it from your collection.
That's right, yes. And I have
And-
a bunch of others that I've done too.
When and where did you serve?
I was in the Air Force from 63 to 67 in Duluth, Minnesota. And we had F-106 fighter aircraft that flew out of there and F-89 Minnesota National Guard.
Every exhibit this year, in the year of 2020, we have been paying tribute to amazing women of Mecosta County. And this exhibit, we are honoring 3 veterans. First off is Evelyn Totten Dunn. Evelyn was born in Big Rapids in 1925. And she went to high school here, and when she graduated high school, it was in the height of World War II. And she went off to work for the war effort, like so many women at that time. And first she was working as a peacoat in a peacoat factory. And then later she found that there were more opportunities for her in Detroit. So she went down to Detroit and became a Rosie the Riveter character by making bombers. And she was able to make $1 an hour at that time, which was enough for her to be independent and on her own in those days. Later, when the war was over, she married her high school sweetheart, and they lived happily ever after here in Big Rapids. Our next amazing woman is weekend warrior Jean Bennett. Jean spent many years in the Army National Guard, and she's very grateful to all the training that she received during that time. She learned everything from payroll to mechanics to map reading to first aid. Finally, in 1980, she left the Guard because she had pretty much reached the pinnacle of what she could reach, because back in those days, women were not allowed to do anything except be non-commissioned officers. And so she has been a lifelong member of the American Vets, and she says if she had to, she would do it all over again because she's so grateful for all of the things that she learned through service to the United States. And our third amazing woman is Kayla Casting. Kayla was also in the U.S. Army Reserves, and she had training as a dietitian. And most notably, she was assigned to a MASH unit and found that an amazing experience being in the field and being a dietitian and providing food, but also she drove truck, and so she drove big 2.5-ton trucks. She spent 11 years. She met her husband while she was commissioned, and she said it was a wonderful experience. She encourages any young woman to join the military because you get to see the world and learn, and she got her education for free.
Tell us what you're putting up, Ruth.
Okay, so we did a tribute to our veterans,
We being,
the Hope Network artists. Everybody say, hey! Hello! Yeah! Okay, so we created this collaborative piece. Everybody did a flag, and then everybody helped create, is that about right? Yes. Hang on.
and this is getting hung upstairs in the Batdorf Gallery as part of a Salute to Veterans 2.
That's correct. Oh, sorry, did I stab you, Eleanor? All right, thank you. Wow, you guys, look at how cool this is. Yeah. Nice work.
Hello, my name is Mary Pacucci, and I represent the Quilts of Valor Foundation. We have a local chapter here in Big Rapids, as well as us being a part of the national organization. The Quilts of Valor Foundation was started in 2003 by a Blue Star mom whose son was deployed. She had a dream, and in that dream, a young man was sitting on the edge of a hospital bed, forlorn looking. Later that night, she had another dream. He was sitting more upright, he looked happier, and he was wrapped in a red, white, and blue quilt. So the next morning, she got up and she dug in her collection of fabric and found red, white, and blue and made what became the first Quilt of Valor. She knew, obviously, several quilters. One of the ladies that she was associated with, husband, was the chaplain at Walter Reed. So she took the quilt to him, to Walter Reed. It was presented to a young man from Minnesota, and that is how it all began. Since that time, there's almost 500 local chapters, and there are over 10,000 members and 257,000 plus quilts similar to these, mostly red, white, and blues, have been presented to our veterans. Quilts start with a fabric collection, and in this case, this was a collection from a manufacturer. And then the quilter will select a pattern and put it together from quality fabrics. We want cottons, beautiful, comfortable, good fabric. From there, the top is put together, and that will go, there's 3 layers to this quilt, which is the definition of the quilt. We have the top, we have the middle layer, which is called batting, and then the backing. And we try to coordinate and make them as beautiful as the front. It is then, the 3 layers are put together and it's quilted. It can be hand quilted or long arm quilted. This one was long arm quilted. And then it goes to an individual who will put the binding on. And that is what holds those 3 layers together. There's a label identifying it as a Quilt of Valor, who the recipient is, what group has presented it, and usually the year on it. Our group in Big Rapids started February of 2015 was the first time that we did a national sew day. We've had done one ever since. We're hoping to have some sort of a celebration on the first Saturday of February 21 also, but obviously we don't know yet. But we have approximately 22 members in our local area. We have presented almost 150 quilts in this time frame. This is another one of our quilts that I believe one of our local sewers has made for us. We've been asked the question by many recipients, why do we get this quilt? And the original intent by Catherine Roberts was that it would go to injured veterans. But as that has expanded over the years, they go to any military person who has been touched by war. And the intent of the quilts is to give comfort and joy to the recipients and most importantly, well, not most importantly, but as important, is to thank them for serving our country.
I hope you all enjoyed our preview of Salute to Veterans 2, sponsored by Steve Miller from Edwin Jones Financial. Please stop by and see the exhibit for yourself. It's open right now and runs until Saturday, November 7th. Again, come in Monday through Saturday between 10 to 4 to see it for yourself. We hope to see you here.